Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like if you enjoy it. Your support means a lot to us and helps the channel grow. Thank you so much. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Encounter with the Absurd. Have you ever stared at the night sky, glittering with billions of stars, and suddenly felt a chilling sense of your own insignificance in the vast, indifferent universe? Have you ever asked yourself about the meaning of it all, the purpose of your existence, and received nothing in return but the deafening silence of the cosmos? That feeling, the fragility of being, the absence of any built-in order or higher goal, is the very abyss that Albert Camus called the absurd. According to Camus, the absurd is not a flaw in the world itself, nor merely a psychological illusion within us. It is a fundamental contradiction, a clash between two forces that can never be reconciled. The chaos, irrationality, and indifference of the universe on one side, and the human longing for clarity, order, meaning, and eternity on the other. We are thinking beings, born into a world that refuses to answer our most sacred questions. Imagine a man trying to piece together a puzzle, only to discover the pieces don't fit. And worse, the picture was never complete to begin with. There is no final image, no guiding blueprint. This futile effort, this repeated disappointment in the face of unanswered longing. This is our encounter with the absurd. We seek logic where there is none. We crave permanence in a world destined to vanish. And this realization can trigger many reactions: despair, sorrow, numbness, or, for some, a rebellious urge to confront it, not with submission, but with defiance. We may feel adrift, as if we've been cast ashore on an alien planet where nothing quite makes sense. Questions like, why are we here? What is the meaning of life? What happens after death? Echo unanswered, plunging us into a quiet existential unrest. But Camus, one of the brightest minds of existential philosophy, did not ask us to surrender. On the contrary, he saw in the absurd the starting point of true freedom and even joy. In his view, recognizing the absurd frees us from illusions, from chasing borrowed meanings, and opens the door to something radically liberating: the creation of our own meaning. A life not rooted in external answers, but in conscious action, creativity, and the beauty of being alive despite everything. Camus called this act of resistance revolt, a choice not to escape the absurd through false hope or resignation, but to stand face to face with it and still say yes to life. To create, to love, to feel deeply, precisely because nothing is guaranteed. That, for him, was not nihilism, but awakening. Today, I invite you to walk with me into Camus' philosophy of rebellion, where we'll explore the nature of the absurd, the many ways we respond to it, and most importantly, how we can find strength and even joy in conscious defiance. Not through denial, but through passionate living, creative courage, and human solidarity. Are you ready to face the absurd, not as your enemy, but as the spark of your deepest strength? Let's begin. Chapter 2. The Nature of the Absurd. A Thirst for Meaning in a Meaningless World. The world itself is not reasonable, and that is precisely the heart of the absurd, wrote Albert Camus, summarizing our profound and painful confrontation with a reality that persistently refuses to meet our deepest needs for order, logic, and meaning. The absurd, according to Camus, is not some metaphysical quality of the universe. It is not a cosmic mistake. Rather, it is born at the crossroads of two forces: our relentless human hunger for clarity and the silent indifference of the universe. It is not the world alone, nor our longing alone, but the collision between the two that is where the absurd is born. We are creatures of consciousness, wired to understand. We seek patterns, reasons, consequences. We try to weave narratives from chaos. We ask questions like, why are we here? What is our purpose? What happens when we die? And we construct religions, philosophies, sciences, all as tools to make sense of it all, to build a rational structure on top of a universe that may never have been built for reason. But the world does not answer. Nature does not care about our dreams, our fears, or our grief. Events unfold without logic, tragedies strike without justice, and death, that ultimate silence, awaits us all. No matter how we resist it, time will sweep away every achievement, every love, every story. This disconnect between our craving for meaning and the world's refusal to provide it, this is the absurd. It surfaces in everyday life, not only in philosophy books. We make plans, knowing full well a single accident can shatter them. We yearn for eternal love, even though every relationship must end. We fight for justice in a world where injustice often wins. We chase goals, knowing that time will one day erase even our proudest accomplishments. Camus put it clearly. The absurd is born of this confrontation between the human need and the unreasonable silence of the world. It is not a stillness, it is tension, a dynamic force, a constant pressure between what we desire and what we get. It is not a philosophical concept to be admired from a distance. It is something we feel. And when we recognize it, the result is often painful. The absurd strips away our comforting illusions. It casts doubt on everything we took for granted, our beliefs, our routines, even our sense of identity. It leaves us raw and exposed before the terrifying vastness of existence. But Camus insisted, this moment, this disillusionment, is not a dead end. It is a beginning. In confronting the absurd, we free ourselves from chasing answers where there are none. We stop measuring our lives against ideals that were never ours. We stop waiting for meaning to arrive from above and begin to craft meaning from within. We become creators of our own values, architects of a life rooted not in cosmic certainty, but in conscious choice. This shift can feel like a fall, but in truth, it is a form of awakening. When we stop demanding that the universe explain itself, we make space for something more honest, more personal, a life lived in spite of. In the absence of ultimate answers, we find the raw materials to build freedom. A freedom that is not granted, but seized. A life that is not explained, but experienced, deeply and passionately. Chapter 3. 3 Responses to the Absurd. When confronted with the absurd, this gaping contradiction between our thirst for meaning and the mute indifference of the universe, Albert Camus believed that the human being faces 3 fundamental choices: physical suicide, philosophical suicide, or rebellion. Each of these paths reflects a distinct response to the realization that life may be inherently meaningless. The first option, physical suicide, is a radical refusal of life itself. Upon recognizing the absurd and seeing no way out, a person might conclude that existence is no longer worth continuing. Suicide becomes an attempt to solve the conflict between the need for meaning and the absence of it by eliminating one side of the equation, the self. But Camus firmly rejected this route. He saw it as a surrender, a final submission to the absurd. Suicide does not resolve the absurd, he argued. It merely confirms its triumph by declaring the human spirit too weak to confront it. To kill oneself is not a philosophical act but an escape from philosophy. The second path, philosophical suicide, is subtler, yet in Camus' view, equally dishonest. It involves turning away from the absurd, not by ending life, but by placing blind faith in some higher meaning, God, destiny, the afterlife, or ideological systems that offer easy answers to life's most troubling questions. This is the root of those who, unable to live with the absurd, cling to comforting illusions. They leap into belief, into hope, into metaphysical explanations that bypass the hard truth of absurdity. Camus criticized this choice as an intellectual betrayal, a way of leaping over the absurd instead of facing it. It is, in his words, an evasion, a way to avoid the terror of an indifferent universe by wrapping it in stories we tell ourselves. But this leap comes at a cost, the price of truth. Camus insisted that if we are to live authentically, we must reject the temptation of illusion and stare directly into the void. That brings us to the third option, rebellion. For Camus, This is the only courageous and honest response to the absurd. Rebellion is not violence, nor nihilistic despair. It is the conscious refusal to surrender, a defiant, ongoing confrontation with absurdity. The rebel does not deny the world's lack of meaning, but neither does he accept it as a death sentence. He chooses to live, fully, passionately, creatively, even while knowing that no higher purpose waits to reward him. This rebellion is not a one-time act. It is a daily decision to affirm life, to act with dignity, to find value in experience itself. Rebellion, Camus wrote, is man's constant confrontation with himself. It is a state of internal struggle, not to escape absurdity, but to resist its power over the human spirit. The rebel lives with open eyes. He has no illusions, but he also refuses to despair. He creates meaning through action, through love, through the intensity with which he chooses to engage with the world, even if the world remains silent. Importantly, Camus did not see rebellion as merely a personal stance. He saw in it the seed of human solidarity. When we realize that the absurd is a universal condition, not just my burden, but ours, we are brought closer together. Through rebellion, we affirm not only our own worth, but the worth of all human beings. We declare, through our actions, that life has value because we give it value. Even in a world without meaning, we can build relationships, nurture creativity, seek justice, and protect each other's dignity. To rebel, then, is not to despair. It is to live deliberately. To face the absurd is to confront death without dying, to endure the silence of the universe without retreating into fantasy. And to rebel is to carve a path forward, not by erasing absurdity, but by refusing to be destroyed by it. Chapter 4. The Philosophy of Rebellion. I rebel, therefore I exist. This iconic phrase by Albert Camus captures the essence of his philosophy of rebellion. It is not a call to violence, nor a rejection of the world out of bitterness. Rather, it is a profound affirmation of human dignity and the value of life in the face of the absurd. Rebellion, for Camus, is a conscious and continuous defiance, an act of courage and clarity that allows a person to remain fully human in a world stripped of inherent meaning. The rebel is not deluded. He sees the absurd for what it is, not as a philosophical puzzle to solve or a wound to hide, but as a naked truth to confront. He makes no attempt to soften its edge with religion, ideology, or false hope. He sees the universe as it is, indifferent, purposeless, devoid of divine design or eternal justice. But this clear-eyed recognition is not the end of his journey. It is the beginning of rebellion. To rebel is not to submit to meaninglessness, nor is it to embrace despair. Rebellion is an act of affirmation, a bold, sustained no to the absurd made through a deeper yes to life itself. It is the refusal to be silenced by futility, and instead to live with intensity, awareness, and a fierce devotion to the very things the absurd threatens to negate: love, beauty, connection, and creation. Camus famously turned to the myth of Sisyphus, condemned to roll a boulder up a hill, only to watch it fall back down, again and again. His fate is absurd, his labor futile, and yet, Sisyphus continues, he does not curse the heavens or seek release in death. He accepts his task and, in doing so, claims ownership of it. Camus saw this as the very image of rebellion, not submission, but endurance, not illusion, but lucidity. By persisting, Sisyphus transcends the absurd, not by escaping it, but by confronting it fully and choosing to keep pushing the stone. In that moment, Camus says, we must imagine Sisyphus happy, because even in futility, there can be dignity. Rebellion, then, is not an egoistic assertion of self. It is an act of solidarity. It is a recognition that the absurd is not mine alone, but shared by all. By rebelling for my own life, I affirm the value of all lives. In declaring my existence meaningful, despite the void, I simultaneously declare that we exist, that we matter, together, as fellow human beings united by the same condition. I rebel. Therefore I exist. This is not just a cry of resistance, it is a call to humanity. It expresses our collective response to an indifferent universe, not through destruction, but through presence. Not by tearing down the world, but by standing together within it, alive and conscious, vulnerable and unyielding. Camus' rebel does not hate the world, nor seek its undoing. On the contrary, rebellion for him is born from a love of life in all its fragility and contradiction. To love life in an absurd world is to cherish its moments, not despite their impermanence, but because of it. This awareness that time is short, that meaning must be made, not found, becomes the fuel for passionate, deliberate living. The rebel finds beauty in the fleeting, significance in the act of creation, and connection in shared struggle. In a world without guarantees, he chooses to live as if each moment mattered, and in doing so, he makes it so. Chapter 5. Freedom in an Absurd World. There is no fate that cannot be overcome by scorn. With these words, Albert Camus captured the defiant spirit at the heart of his vision of freedom in an absurd world. Once we awaken to the reality that life holds no inherent meaning, no preordained purpose, we may at first feel overwhelmed, lost in a vast, indifferent universe. But for Camus, this realization is not a curse. It is liberation. In a world where no divine law commands us, where no destiny awaits us, we are left not with despair, but with possibility, the radical, exhilarating possibility of freedom. Freedom not granted by gods or granted by systems, but discovered within ourselves, the freedom to create values in a world that offers none. In the face of absurdity, we are unbound. There are no eternal commandments to obey, no cosmic scripts to follow. That can seem frightening, the silence of the universe, the absence of a higher moral order. But Camus invites us to see it differently. It is precisely this silence that makes us powerful. We alone must decide what matters. We alone must become the authors of our lives. Freedom in an absurd world begins with freedom of thought. We are no longer obligated to kneel before authority or accept inherited truths without question. We are free to doubt, to dismantle, to begin again, to look at tradition, dogma, ideology, and ask, does this still speak to my experience, to my reason? This intellectual freedom is the first spark of real autonomy. It is the courage to think for ourselves, even when the answers don't come easily. But freedom of thought must lead to freedom of action. And with action comes responsibility. There are no guaranteed outcomes, no fixed path toward happiness or justice. Every choice we make is an experiment. We don't follow the map, we draw it as we walk. That burden is heavy. To be truly free is not to live without limits. It is to accept that we alone are responsible for the meaning we give our lives. There is no external authority to blame, no fate to fall back on. Only us. Only now. Man is the only creature who refuses to be what he is, Camus wrote. And in that refusal, he saw our greatest power. We do not have to accept the world as it is. We can rebel. Not with violence, but with creation, by building our own structure of meaning, our own values, our own purpose. To create values in an absurd world is not a selfish or arbitrary act. It is born from our deepest longings, for love, for connection, for beauty, for truth. It comes from our desire to live fully, even when we know that life ends. It comes from solidarity, from seeing others like ourselves, caught in the same strangeness of existence, and choosing to stand with them rather than against them. This freedom is no easy gift. It demands clarity. It demands courage. And it demands that we carry the weight of our lives on our own shoulders. But in that responsibility lies our greatness. For it is only through this freedom that our lives become truly meaningful. Not because the universe declares it so, but because we declare it so. We are not the product of some divine plan. We are the builders of our own cosmos. the architects of value in a world that does not care. And that, Camus believed, is the most human thing of all. Chapter 6. Passion as a Response. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. This paradoxical statement by Albert Camus encapsulates a profound understanding of how one can find joy and meaning even in an absurd situation. One of the key elements of this Sisyphus happiness is passion, the intense experience of the present moment, fully immersing oneself in emotions and sensations, letting go of regrets about the past and worries about the future. In an absurd world, devoid of eternal meaning, it is the depth and intensity of the present that becomes the source of our joy and a form of rebellion against meaninglessness. Once we come to terms with the finitude of our existence and the absence of a higher purpose, we are liberated from the illusion of eternity and turn our focus toward the fullness of the present. Every moment becomes precious and irreplaceable. Passion is our way of truly experiencing this moment, of absorbing all of its colors, sounds, smells, and emotions. It is a rejection of passive waiting and an active participation in our own lives. Passion can take many forms. It might be passionate love, where every moment of closeness is imbued with profound meaning. It might be the passion for creativity, where the act of creation consumes us entirely, giving us a deep sense of fulfillment. It might be the passion for knowledge, where the thirst for discovery makes us forget everything else. It might even be the passion for simple pleasures, the taste of food, the beauty of nature, or time spent with loved ones. In an absurd world, where the future is uncertain and the past is irrevocable, the only reality we fully possess is the present. By living this moment passionately, we assert our existence. We rebel against the meaninglessness of time, which relentlessly moves forward, taking our opportunities with it. Camus saw in the myth of Don Juan another example of the rebel living with passion. Don Juan is not seeking eternal love or a higher meaning in his relationships. He lives each moment, each new encounter, with total commitment, finding joy in the very act of seduction and conquest. His passion for life, his insatiable thirst for new experiences, is his way of resisting the absurdity of life's finitude and monotony. You must live. This simple, unequivocal statement by Camus emphasizes passion as one of the core ways to live fully. It is a rejection of compromises, of half measures, of boredom and apathy. It is a choice for intensity, depth, and fullness of experience. However, for Camus, passion should not be blind and destructive. It must be conscious, directed toward affirming life, building connections with others, and creating something of value. Passion, combined with rebellion, becomes a powerful force, capable of filling an absurd world with joy and meaning that we ourselves create. Chapter 7. Creativity as Rebellion. Creation in the Face of Meaninglessness. To create is to live twice. This quote by Albert Camus emphasizes the deep connection between creativity and the affirmation of life. In an absurd world, where there is no inherent meaning and everything is doomed to fade, creativity becomes one of the most powerful forms of rebellion against meaninglessness. By creating something new, whether it's a work of art, a scientific discovery, a philosophical idea, or simply a thoughtful action, a person momentarily transcends the finitude of their existence and leaves a mark of their presence in the world. Creativity is an act of resistance against the chaos and indifference of the universe. It represents an attempt by the individual to impose their own order on the surrounding reality, to create their own microcosm of meaning in the macrocosm of absurdity. The artist painting a picture, the writer crafting a novel, the scientist formulating a new theory, all of them challenge the absurd by asserting the power of human reason and imagination. For Camus, creativity was not just a form of self-expression but a conscious form of rebellion. The creator does not harbor illusions about the eternity of their work or its ability to definitively resolve the problem of the absurd. They understand that everything they create will eventually vanish, just as they themselves will. But it is precisely this awareness of finitude that gives their creation special value and intensity. By creating, they affirm their life, their unique perspective on the world, their ability to build something despite the general destruction. The myth of Sisyphus again serves as an illustration. Sisyphus, condemned to an endless, meaningless task, could have given in to despair. But instead, he continues to roll his stone, finding in the very process of physical effort, in the rhythm of his movement, a form of life affirmation. Creativity is a kind of intellectual and emotional stone rolling, a conscious and persistent effort to create something meaningful in a meaningless world. Creativity is not limited to the boundaries of art or science. Any meaningful action, performed by us with full dedication and an understanding of its value, is a form of creativity. Caring for loved ones, striving for justice, fighting for one's beliefs, even simply paying attention to the world around us. All of these are ways to create our own meaning and rebel against absurdity in everyday life. To create is to give shape to one's fate. This statement by Camus underscores the active role of the individual in creating their own meaning. We are not passive victims of the absurd. We are active participants in the drama of our existence. Through creativity, we assert our freedom, our ability to transform the world around us, and fill it with our own meaning. Like passion, creativity is a way of intensely living the present moment. When we are fully immersed in the process of creation, we forget the anxieties of the past and the uncertainties of the future. We live here and now, feeling the fullness of our existence in the act of creation. Chapter 8. Find Joy in a Meaningless World. Our journey into the philosophy of Albert Camus, into his bold and paradoxical view of the absurd and ways to overcome it, has come to an end. We have confronted the fundamental contradiction between our insatiable thirst for meaning and the indifferent silence of the universe. We explored three possible responses to this clash, and came to the understanding that rebellion, a conscious and continuous resistance to the absurd, is the only genuine and courageous answer. We saw that rebellion is not violence or a denial of life, but a passionate affirmation of human dignity, the value of life, and solidarity in the face of meaninglessness. We realized that the awareness of the absence of inherent meaning does not shackle us, but rather frees us, allowing us to create our own values and meanings in a world that offers none. We explored the power of passion, the intense experience of the present moment, as a form of rebellion and a way to find joy in an absurd world. We saw how creativity, the act of creation in the face of finitude, becomes another powerful form of resistance to meaninglessness, allowing us to leave a mark of our existence and affirm our ability to transform the world. Camus' philosophy is not a call to despair, but an inspiring invitation to an active life, to boldly embrace the absurd as the starting point for creating our own meaning. He teaches us to find joy not in illusory hopes for eternity or a higher order, but in the very process of life itself, in every lived moment, in every human connection, in every act of creation. So what should we do now? How can we apply these profound ideas to our own lives? Begin with an honest look at the world around you and your own expectations. Acknowledge the absurd, without trying to ignore it or find easy answers where none exist. Free yourself from the illusions of eternal meaning and predetermined fate. Embrace the freedom to create your own values and live in accordance with them. Fill your life with passion. Live every moment with full engagement. Appreciate the beauty and intensity of the present. Rebel against meaninglessness through creativity in the broadest sense of the word. Create something new, whether it's a work of art, a project at work, warm relationships with loved ones, or simply a thoughtful act filled with love and attention. And finally, imagine Sisyphus happy. Find your own joy in an absurd world, not by denying its meaninglessness, but by boldly confronting it with your own affirmation of life, passion, and creativity. Your life is your own work of art, created in the absence of an external script. Fill it with the meaning you create yourself, and find joy in every moment of it. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Your support truly helps us grow. We appreciate it so much.